Welcome to the Hermitcraft recap. My name is PixelRiffs. Our writer is SlyXP. Captions on this video were provided by Liara. Mark your calendars, because Hermitcraft is back in action with their annual Gamers for Giving charity event in support of Gamers Outreach. On April 11th and 12th, the Hermits and friends will be streaming a marathon of wholesome chaos with the intent to bring some much-needed joy to hospitalized children supported by Gamers Outreach. We'll make sure to remind you nearer the time, but with contributions from this community, we can help make this year's event better than ever. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at all the events and mishaps that occurred on the Hermitcraft server this week. Starting with Tango Tech, who, as Grian helpfully reminds us, is not normal.
It's quite easy on the Hermitcraft server to end up comparing yourself to everyone else's progress, and I think this is not normal and not what you would expect from a normal human being. Tango has been working so hard.
With that disclaimer out of the way, here's the Decked Out 3 progress from his latest video. The whole giant area for the game is now chunk-loaded, but only when it needs to be. It would actually have been easier to just put an Ender Pearl stasis chamber in every chunk under the game, but Tango settles for an older Nether Portal-based solution just because it can actually be toggled on and off, saving the server a significant burden of thinking about Decked Out 3.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't sure if that was gonna work, so that makes me super happy right now.
Unfortunately, such fate doesn't bypass Tango himself, or Good Times with Scar for that matter, whom Tango employs for the decorating of his game. Because Season 4 habits die hard, and people still cash in their IOUs just to get Scar to build some trees on their territory.
All right, mister. I will hoe you some trees.
Yeah, and there's no rush. You could take, whatever, a month on this. I don't care.
Tango, in the meantime, still has some kinks to work out with the monster distribution system, as it turns out that cave spiders are uniquely annoying to put in a minecart and then into a funny monster pillar. Unfortunately for future players, he successfully creates a conveyor belt of the poisonous arachnids, which is sure to make it all the more difficult for everyone, including himself. Scar just so happens to also be freshly off a massive terraforming project, where he reshaped the cliff sides of his base into higher contrast dark rock covered with a plate of moss wherever possible. He also removed the cube of copper golems from his starter base creature, which should be concerning for the rest of the server. He very much intends to pass the little green men onto somebody else, and even grinds copper specifically to make more of them.
I realized what we should do is double them and pass it on. Oh my god, I'm just realizing now that they instantly statuify. Oh, guys, I wasted so much time.
Actually, while it's not entirely clear who started it, the moss to blackstone rockface combo is a common design for this season. Joel Smallish Beans deviates from the idea only in that his hillside is orange with granite, while False Symmetry embraces the high contrast and covers up a side of her home base completely, creating the natural arch that douses a passage under it into complete darkness. Which is, of course, where she puts a small garden, as only in this darkness can the Soul Lantern Dripleaf bloom. Amidst the building, Rendog's hat shows up, with Ren himself attached somewhere under, and they advertise his hat shop with no hats in it to False, which we only bring up to tell you that the order he chose to display wool colours in there is driving False up the wool. But as the custom terrain spreads across the server, it simply can't reach the one corner of the cliff across from Grian's base.
Look at this. Absolutely insane. Amazing. But what do I have to do to get my bit done? He's left this bit. Please, Scar, please.
Of course, there's still a chance for his view to get pretty. The main spawn area riverbed is getting a facelift for the big race facilitated by Cubfan. iJevin, in fact, already provided the project with all the Nautilus shells it could ever need, which took some serious AFK fishing, actually.
Fish caught 11,700. We're locked in.
Hang on.
We're locked in.
I'm gonna see what I'm at. Fish caught
40. 45.
233.
Wow, okay. You actually did a little bit of fishing.
Jevin's own base, in the meantime, has maybe water ballooned entirely too much to still be considered a part of the racing river. Though chances are the boats he has planned for the Dread Pirate Bay will be worthy obstacles on the way to the finish line. There's certainly some ambitious vessels planned here, including this one which is big enough to be an aircraft carrier.
So by the time we get to the top, we're looking at probably 135 to 140 blocks long, which is freaking huge. I know.
But while the moss is getting to Grian's cave, Grian is actually getting out of the place. And not just because it has a giant exploding crystal at the center. After this final push where Grian ties up the whimsical hall, he declares the home base pretty much finished, even if it could use a couple of sniffers in the bedroom who just can't seem to get enough of the Corrales painting.
That is so wrong. What on earth? I made my own faces.
This is in fact very timely because Grian also has finally figured out what he wants his mega base for the season to be. And of course it's just a few blocks away from Mumbo Jumbo's, why wouldn't it be? The plans are quite ambitious, with just the mountain holding the main structure up being as tall as a mountain. But then the build itself is going to be an observatory reaching up to the sky, inspired by some areas from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which Grian admits is a big influence on him overall. Meaning he had some Majora deja vu back in Season 8 when the moon was falling.
Because I think it's here, the Astral Observatory from Majora's Mask, that I am pulling some emotional tie to when I build this Hermitcraft base.
This time around, any earthbound celestial body will have to deal with Joel Smallish Beans and his sky-facing rainbow cannon. The point of his deepest basement is revealed when Joel installs a massive reactor structure down the middle of it. And with the power of 64 horse heads, the thing erupts in all the colours of the rainbow, blasting a vibrant hole through the cliff he just finished building. 249 horses killed for a great cause.
Gathering materials took me, a day or two as well. It's ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous. I can't no-life it anymore. I've got other responsibilities.
So Joel might have started both Stalker and Annihilation canon events here, but he did also give us another snippet of B00 spotted on the server. So props to him from all the people asking us where B-dubs is for some reason. Not all heroes wear capes. But if you are wearing custom elytra, your superhero identity is going to be helped enormously by getting a mask to match. Despite us all knowing who he is, especially if you saw the thumbnail or watched his new animated overlay, XB Crafted steps into the changing room he's assembled and emerges as actually a variety of things. But finally he dons the new look for FedXB. The helmet is very Daft Punk, perhaps reflecting that XB is working harder, better, faster and stronger, or perhaps that he's human after all. He visits Hypno one more time, mostly because Hypno needs solutions for all the Blackstone he wants to build with, and drops in on Corrales, who we're just happy is alive. At least we get to see a creative rendering of how that giant snow golem keeps moving around the world.
Now, it really ties everything together in a nice way.
From the enormous cinematic models to the miniature ones, Joe Hills clears out the basement of the TV studio so he can restructure it into a workshop for scaled-down cinematography, alongside the dressing rooms for talent and a kitchenette where he can smelt all his copper in the microwave. He might want to install a doorbell for the next time he gets jump scared by FedXB though.
But hey XP. Okay.
As for the miniatures, the power of armor stand magic comes into play here. Joe can shrink and position the models with much more attention to scale than regular Minecraft building allows, and even manages to simulate weather effects with some water droplets from the ceiling above and some carefully thrown wind charges. So I guess now it's a wetter workshop.
I just heard people say it doesn't look good.
Yeah, people are saying that this doesn't look good. They're saying the effects look dated.
Oh, but you were about to say something hilarious. This looks wetter than...
This is wetter than any other CG water I've ever...
This is the wettest water I've ever seen.
If he needs snow, of course, he'll know who to call, because Doc M is positively covered in the stuff, but still needs to consider the safety of his neighbours, which is why when Pearlescent Moon shows up to ask about good locations for a fire tower, Doc suggests either the near side of the decked out mountains or the neutral territory between himself and Joel.
Right? Since I'm
exactly.
on autopilot for my sleeping.
Yeah.
But then the moment that there's nighttime that you wanted, everyone's complaining about it. But they don't sleep.
Yes. I have horrible time.
Pearl is also happy to help him bait and boat a handful of zombies because Doc's latest innovation is a slime farm that gets looting 3 drops without a player even being there. The trick, it turns out through trial and error, is to avoid giving the zombies spears right away because they have a tendency to destroy each other trying to skewer the player. But once they have a villager to focus on, and minecarts moving them back and forth, they can poke at slimes through the gaps in stair blocks and kebab them as water streams pull them closer. Speaking of kebabs, congratulations to whoever delivered Doc's takeaway food for making a cameo in your first Hermitcraft episode.
Oh, my phone. What? Oh yeah, I ordered some Chinese food. 1 second.
More tasty redstone projects are showcased in Impulse SV's neck of the woods, where he has built a 64-furnace smelter array with some handy minecart circuits, allowing him to feed items in from his storage room and drop them to the basement layers of the silo for processing. We'd call it a dumbwaiter, but this is actually pretty smart. As we've seen in previous episodes, he's also built what passes for a raid farm in the year 2026, but to live up to its full potential, he needs a bunch of ominous bottles to trigger the raids in the first place. Fortunately, those are easy enough to get from a pillager outpost, which soon provides several stacks of each tier of forbidden root beer, enough to AFK the raid farm overnight and have plenty of emeralds and redstone waiting for him in the morning.
You know, a little bit of server lag or whatever could cause me to quickly swing twice at the armor stand and break it, and then I'm just gonna die over time.
Back at the silo, he puts together a slick-looking control room from which he will eventually be able to switch all his farms on and off. For now, we can just imagine all those levers add up to a big remote control for the giant TV screen. And finally, there's Mumbo, who returns from Ecuador, remembers all his possessions were destroyed by the Wither, and immediately gets lost in the back rooms.
Where am I? Where have I ended up? Why are there so many ender chests? What is their skulk? What is this magenta?
Hiking up a mountain seems to be on his mind, because he finally reveals his plans for a giant city on top of the hill overlooking his junk punk farmstead, with an exploration mechanic inspired by a short hike. Alas, the cherry groves of the server are the real victims of capitalism, because yet another must be demolished to suit Mumbo's designs. He starts scraping out the sky shapers in creative, and back on the server he attempts to balance out the deforestation by continuing Scar's custom trees from the shopping district down into his area. He didn't even burn down the original cherry grove, so we're a little surprised that Pearlescent Moon shows up to build another Firewatch tower in the area, but at least Mumbo has something to measure his new trees against. And if the upcoming capitalist megastructure ever gets set on fire, at least he'll have a nice balcony from which to watch it burn. And that's about it for this week's recap. Our writer is SloyXP, and my name is PixelRiffs. Captions on this video were provided by Liara. Don't forget to leave a like while you're still here, and subscribe so you won't miss future recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.